What's up, folks? Today's live is going to take a bit of a more serious tone. Only because I wasn't really intending on doing political commentary so much during the current political climate here in Canada, because we've got an election coming up. Got other things to talk about in terms of fitness and health, but based on a post that I just saw the other day from Kelsey Sheeran about yet another veteran being offered MAID, I can't shake the anger. And this kind of compounds itself on the layers of anger and disappointment over the last 10 years of being a veteran and seeing consistently what the government has done nonstop to delay, deny, and kill veterans. It's astounding to me that the overwhelming majority of Canadians don't know what's going on. And so today's live isn't really going to be for the Hard to Kill podcast subscriber per se. I'm sure you'll glean some new information, but likely not. This is actually for my mother, my father, my aunt, uncle, your mother, father, aunts, uncles, great uncles, all those folks that are baby boomers. Because I realize there's an incomplete picture as to what's happened to our community over the last 10 years. And I can't really hold my tongue any longer on the political front because this election is too important. This election is way too important. And so my call to action is for all you folks that are listening right now is to share it with all your baby boomer friends, family, and others. The unfortunate reality is that there's a whole group of people out there, the baby boomers, that are oblivious to what is going on in a lot of our communities because they're retired. They've lived a great life, and good for them. But having discussed things with my parents, with my aunts and uncles, it's clear that my reality is very different from their reality. And my concern is that this next election is going to be focused around their needs, and they're not considering the needs of their kids and their grandkids. So this is my impassioned plea to them. I'm going to be discussing a few veteran issues, a few military issues that I hope resonate. And I don't care who you vote for. I really don't. That's not my intent. My intent is to bring awareness to things that are going on. And based on the last 10 years, you can come to the conclusions as to maybe the current ruling party isn't the best choice long-term for our country based on their actions, not based on what they say. So I'm not going to be relying on comments very much today. If you do feel like commenting, please do. I really appreciate it. If you could do me a big favor and share this stream with your friends right now, that would be awesome as well. I'm streaming live on X, Instagram, and YouTube. So please feel free to hit the like button and subscribe. So like I said earlier, this post all came about because I learned of yet more veterans being offered MAID here in Canada. The post is this one here, as I bring it up. So Kelsey Sheeran, if you're not aware, is a great advocate for our community. And I'm going to play this clip for you on X so that you can get a gist of what's going on.
Call me a conspiracist, call me whatever you want. But when the world, philosophers and thinkers are sitting down with me and going, you're on to something here. We've sounded the alarm now for years. Veterans Affairs Canada said publicly and emphatically to Mercedes Stephenson, we've only offered it to 5 people. We stopped doing it. I have reports as of last week. Veterans Affairs has been offering it last week. I had a sit down with the Veterans Affairs Minister 2 weeks ago and had to inform him of this program because he was unaware that this was still happening. When you go on Dying with Dignity's own website under their donor list, you can see Telus and Rogers and Bell. That's the famous Bell Let's Talk about mental health suicide prevention. Why aren't you guys calling your Bell provider and asking them why are they the largest, one of the largest donors to the pro-death organization Dying with Dignity, yet talking out of their mouth about suicide prevention? Why? Why is that happening?
So I hope that frames the context of why I'm so adamant about what's going on right now. I don't want this to happen to any other veterans. And I've had veterans on my show talk about this very problem. The government has said this is a one-time occurrence. This isn't going to happen again. But Kelsey's a very reliable source. She wouldn't be posting this if she didn't have the ATIP requests and the firsthand knowledge that this is happening again. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into why I think this is happening and why I think it should influence you when you go to the ballot box. So let's just go back a few years. Let's go way back into time. When Trudeau was on the public speaking tour, right? He was still popular, super popular. So popular that I decided to even vote for him. But he had a conversation with Brock. Brock is a legend. If you haven't seen this clip, and this is the first time, I'd like to know what you think. But this, in a nutshell, is what I think is going on. And it's a broader issue that we need to discuss here on the show.
24th, 2015. You made the promise, and I'll quote it here, "No veteran will be forced to fight their own government for the support and compensation they have earned. Yet you are still currently in a legal battle with veterans regarding equal support and compensation to their peers. You have ISIL or ISIS members coming into a reintegration program. You did a backdoor deal with Omar Khadr with not even stepping into the courtroom. You know, so again, my question is, what veterans were you talking about? Was it the ones that fought for the freedoms and values that you so proudly boast about, or was it the ones who fought against? Because honestly, Mr. Prime Minister, I was prepared to be injured in the line of duty when I went.
Let me bring that back a little bit there, folks. I didn't have that. I didn't have that streaming.
2015. You made the promise, and I'll quote it here. No veteran will be forced to fight their own government for the support and compensation they have earned. Yet you are still currently in a legal battle with veterans regarding equal support and compensation to their peers. You have ISIL or ISIS members coming into a reintegration program. You did a backdoor deal with Omar Khadr with not even stepping into the courtroom. You know, so again, my question is, what veterans were you talking about? Was it the ones that fought for the freedoms and values that you so proudly boast about, or was it the ones who fought against? Because honestly, Mr. Prime Minister, I was prepared to be injured in the line of duty when I joined the military. Nobody forced me to join the military. I was prepared to be killed in action. What I wasn't prepared for, Mr. Prime Minister, is Canada turning its back on me. So which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Why are we still fighting against certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now. They're asking for more than we... Well, no. Hang on. You're asking for honest answers. The old Veterans Charter...
So I'll leave that there. To give you some context. The current government doesn't feel that spending money on veterans is a worthy cause. There are many lawsuits that are still outstanding. We'll get into a few of them. Ultimately, I think that at a point where they see the veteran community as a major threat. We're young, we're war fighters, we're principled, and we can destroy their little game because we've seen the ugly side of war. We've seen the corruption. And so for them, keeping us sick, keeping us unable to heal, and effectively letting us die and offering to kill us is their best solution. Tying us up in the courts is a perfect way to do that. And so the next thing I want to show you guys is something that really affected me. Now, Brock here, solid human being. And you can tell he was holding back the emotion when speaking to the prime minister. And I would have the exact same reaction. In this case that I'm going to show you, this is during the COVID pandemic. Now, it's hard to find this clip because it's in French. And I think it was done on purpose to be said in French because it's hard for the clip to go viral in French as opposed to English. But the language that was used was deeply troubling to me and angered me, but it angered me because it developed a deep sense of sadness because I learned this day that our country doesn't value folks like myself that have a different opinion and that shouldn't be part of our society and no longer should be tolerated. If you know the clip I'm talking about, great, but let me roll that clip for you.
Puis on en connaît tous des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu. On va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre. Mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination, qui ne croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens-là ou est-ce qu'on dit, ben, voyons, la plupart des gens, parce que 80%...
So let me translate that for you. What he's saying is that there is a small group of people that don't want to get on board with our COVID policies. They're often racist. They're often misogynist. And we need to determine whether or not, as a Canadian society, we should tolerate these people. Fun fact, a lot of veterans, they got the jab, but fundamentally disagreed with all of this nonsense, myself included. And the reason for it is we didn't go overseas and fight for totalitarian values where you're forced to make a medical decision based on what the government says. That's not why I went over. I went over to spread Canadian values: life, liberty, justice, equality. These weren't the values that are being expressed. So now that we have a context, now we have a framework of why I'm upset and why I think we need a different plan moving forward, I want to get into the meat of things. Okay? We fought for 20 years. These wars, the global war on terror, were co-signed by all of the baby boomer generation. Whether you agreed with them, cared about them, knew about them, it doesn't matter. All our boys and girls were sent overseas to fight a dirty war in Iraq and Afghanistan. If you didn't say anything about it, that's on you. If you're like, well, I didn't want that to happen. Well, did you protest? Did you write to your member of parliament? Likely not, because I didn't see any protest. There was nobody in Canada that said anything. I was all for it. I was like, hells yeah, let's get on board. Let's kick some ass. Let's kick some terrorist ass. So that means we're all in the same boat, whether you like it or not. And so there's an unspoken, unwritten contract between a nation's soldiers and its civilian populace. And that's, you get to go to bed at night and sleep comfortably while dangerous men do your dirty work for you. And that includes the police, that includes fire, that includes CSIS, that includes all the people that keep this society safe and secure. Now, whether or not you believe that the wars in Afghanistan kept you safe and secure is irrelevant. We all went over and we did the dirty work that Canada said we had to do. We killed people, we lost friends, we're injured, we're banged up. And so therefore, it's incumbent upon you to make sure that we're okay. Because when you come knocking at the door for soldiers to go fight your wars again, who's going to stand up? Based on the treatment that we've had, I would argue there's not going to be many. Judging by the recruiting numbers, that's the case. Judging by the veteran sentiment, you're not going to get us on board. So who are you actually going to get? And so therefore, you need to think long and hard. How do you want your country to look like for your kids and for your grandkids? And so I want to exemplify a few points here, okay? We've had the last 10 years of liberal rule essentially erode a shit ton of progress that Canada has made. Now, the point of this video isn't to highlight the economics of things. However, it's very hard to ignore the fact that we have gone from a nation that was essentially on par with the US to something that looks like this, where our gross national product has completely fallen off a cliff. Homelessness is at a record high. Crime is at a record high. Veteran suicides are not slowing down. Suicide and mental health issues are not slowing down. Seeing a doctor is laughable. And this affects us. This affects the veteran community almost more than anybody else because we need the care and we need it fast, but we can't get it. So all of these things are starting to cascade. Price of groceries are atrocious. I just spent $35 on avocados and produce. Housing prices have doubled, if not tripled. My kids will never be able to afford a house if this is the trend moving forward. So how can we foresee a prosperous life for my children, for your grandchildren, if we don't fix what's going on structurally here in the country? The last 10 years, look at what they've done, not what they are promising to do, is all I'm asking. And now, based on the fact that individuals are in the Canadian Armed Forces and those that have been out of the Canadian Armed Forces, the veterans, have been offered MAID. This should be a blinking red light that things have fallen off the rails. I believe they want us dead. I believe that this is not by accident. We can look at the cases here when it comes to those individuals that were offered MAID. This goes back years. Okay, RCMP called to investigate multiple cases of veterans being offered medically assisted death. This is from 2022. It's now 2025. If you're not convinced that they want us dead, look at the suicide rates. Canadian suicide rates for veterans. Right? We're 1.4 times at greater risk of suicide. And that number is way underrepresented. Notice that they do not produce any actual tangible numbers. How many Canadian Armed Forces veterans have actually committed suicide? You can't find it. In the United States, you have that number. It's roughly 150,000, which is an absurd number. Our rate of suicide is on par with the American suicide rate, but there's no discussion of it because they take numbers for veterans that served way before the global war on terror. And so all of my friends that served during that global war on terror account for about 40 to 50,000 veterans total. The suicide rate there is atrocious. However, there's no discussion of it because it's hidden within the data. So to find the actual number, it's going to be hard pressed. So absolute numbers probably won't shock you. But in terms of relative numbers, when there's only about 50,000 that served, and we likely have thousands that have harmed themselves or committed suicide, that is a number that will boggle your mind. We don't even know how many reservists like myself have gone ahead and taken their lives because we don't even track reservists. The situation is dire. We need help, but we're definitely not going to get it from the federal government. So this brings me to the point of getting assistance. I want to frame this as best as I can. Veterans Affairs is supposed to be an organization that you can reach out to if you're in trouble. However, veterans have reached out when they're in their moment of need and they've been offered death rather than assistance. The government has yet to address this fact. Nobody's been fired. Nothing has been undertaken in terms of investigation with respect to the RCMP. Nothing has been solved. And so therefore, this program continues to roll on. And so part of getting on the live here and discussing this is to actually hold freaking people accountable. Calling your MP is likely not going to do anything. But if this gets you fired up and gets you angry, then the simplest thing you can do is don't elect a party that doesn't do anything that is clearly out to harm veterans in the worst way possible. When they're at their lowest point, they're being offered death rather than help. Since they see my generation as a threat, there's a few other things that have taken place that I want to bring up as well. These are things that I've covered on the podcast as well. So this is nothing new for the viewer, but this may be a shock to those that have been watching only CBC, only CTV, and their news feeds are strictly from the television. Since the suicide epidemic is so high, we have a system in place that is meant to prevent suicides, which includes massive doses of SSRIs and talk therapy. This is not cutting it. And although we've had impassioned pleas for years to have access to psychedelics, the government has turned a blind eye and instead has offered us marijuana to the tune of about $1,000 to $3,000 a month. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy having my occasional joint from time to time, but does it help fix my mental health issues? Absolutely not. Does it compound some issues that could be going on? Absolutely. Does it turn you into a vegetable if you do too much of it? 100%. Do they provide any counseling as to how to use this plant medicine? Absolutely not. So what's the intent here? I believe it's to just simply numb the veteran. Like everything else, SSRIs are a known threat to your mental health over long-term exposure because these studies have been done since the 90s. Suicidal ideation is a major risk for these drugs. Yet we continue to prescribe them and think that we're going to get a different solution. We continue with talk therapy, especially for men, when it's clear based on the research that continually doing talk therapy is not going to help a man get healthy. Walking shoulder to shoulder and doing hard shit with other men is how men heal. Yet the system doesn't want to listen. So although there are many programs that are available, veterans have to go spend money out of their pocket, case in point, like me, to go to places like Mexico, to go to places like Colombia, to get the treatment they need. All of this falls on deaf ears from Veterans Affairs Canada. So are they truly in the business of making sure we heal? I don't think they are. Next, when cancer is prevalent in our community and the acrid smoke that we breathed in, the toxic smoke that we breathed in for years in Afghanistan and Iraq and all the other dirty places that we had to go fight, causes gnarly malignant tumors in young men that shouldn't be exposed to these things. You have to wonder, well, is this service related? Clearly, it must be. But Veterans Affairs deems it necessary to take our veterans to court, force them to spend their own money, and hope that they get exhausted both physically and financially before they can see the court case through, and hopefully die before it happens. But thankfully, there are a few brave veterans that have taken them to court and have won. And thanks to our American friends, like the Grunstyle Foundation, that have gone to bat for their own veterans and gotten the PACT Act passed, the largest piece of workplace compensation, workplace safety compensation in human history, to make sure that Vietnam era veterans and onwards get the coverage they need based on the cancers and the weird diseases, chronic illnesses that they develop because of their service, because they decided to serve their country, and it's only fitting that they get the benefits that are owed to them. We don't have anything comparable. They want to pick us off one by one. They don't want to hear this. So therefore, it's up to you, because we're not big enough. We don't have the lobby. We don't have the money. We have nothing. There's 500,000 veterans in Canada. What are we going to do? And by the time we get to it, we're exhausted. We need desperately a voice. And I think the only voice we have is at the ballot box. Now, is any other party going to do better? I don't know, but they can definitely do better than this. So thanks to these brave veterans, they put their financial ass on the line to get the compensation they needed. But that's a good story. If you follow along to other issues, like those veterans that were injured because of the COVID vaccines, sorry, buddy, you're on your own. Even veterans that have been injured on the job have a doctor sign off that, yes, this is an injury due to the vax. Veterans Affairs will still say, unfortunately, this is not service related. And now that you're no longer in the military because you've been medically released because you're disabled due to this thing, we're not going to compensate you. So good luck providing for your family. Let's give you some career planning services and carry on, sir. That doesn't cut it. There are lots of folks that got injured here, and we're just throwing it under the rug like everything else. It's not discussed in the media. And soldiers are literally dying out there because of these things. And we are being told, we're being gaslit that no, absolutely, this has nothing to do with the thing that you put in your arm because we told you you had to. And now that you can't work, too bad, so sad. This is due to other reasons. So I implore you, like, find the compassion in your heart to recognize that this is not what Canadian values represent. This is not what any of us signed up for. We knew our job was dangerous. This isn't a bitching and moaning session. This is like what I said earlier, the unspoken contract. We know our job is dangerous. We are going to die likely earlier than any one of you because of the risks we decided to undertake. And we're the fortunate ones. We're the ones that got to come back. A lot of us didn't, but that's the job we signed up for. But when we're home, at least fucking recognize that we have some issues and we don't want to have to go to court every time we have an issue. We want to make sure that we're taken care of, because when we're not taken care of, this is what happens. This is what we have to resort to. YouTube channels, bitching online, pot shots with lawyers trying to get the compensation that we need. But it's because you don't know. You're not made aware. And this is the point. You have to be aware. And whatever your political stance is, I don't give a shit. I know you have the compassion in your heart to recognize, hey, these guys are in trouble. They need some help. What can I do? And that is what I am asking you. The list goes on, okay? There are other lawsuits, vexatious claims for vaccine mandates, for clear abuse of power against our soldiers. So much so that it would likely be torture in any other court of law. Disgusting claims that are just dismissed out of hand because as veterans, as members of Canadian Armed Forces, we do not have a leg to stand on legally. They throw us back into the same system that abused us. There's no justice here. We're Canadian citizens just like everybody else, but we're not treated the same way, nor does the legal system treat us in the same way. We're cast out and thrown back into the system over and over again to exhaust us financially and physically. And hopefully, delay, deny, die takes root, and Veterans Affairs doesn't have to think about us anymore. And if that doesn't cause any kind of concern, as soon as we do raise concerns about, hey, maybe our government is overstepping, we're labeled right-wing, far-right extremist. Case in point, James Topp, who I spoke to on the podcast, who was on the brink of suicide, decided to criticize the government in uniform, is a brave Canadian hero, served his entire life in the Canadian Armed Forces, and walked across the country to bring awareness to the fact that Canada was going in the wrong direction with its COVID mandates. And what did the news media do? They labeled him a far-right extremist to completely discredit the man. And I can attest, there's no far-right extremist in him. Because if there is, then I'm a far-right extremist. And considering most of you guys know who I am that I'm talking to right now, I think you'd be shocked if somehow I was a far-right extremist. Because I'm the furthest thing from a far-right extremist, having voted fucking liberal my entire life. To imply that somehow I'm a Nazi and that any one of us are Nazis because we disagree with government policy, this is the treatment that we're expected now in Canada. This is how the general public sees us now, because the ones that are outspoken like myself immediately get labeled. Oh, must be alt-right. Oh, must be conservative. Oh, must be PPC. We need to completely dismiss what this guy has to say. It's a great tactic. I'm not going to lie. Scares you likely. But if you know me, you know that's not the case. And so anybody that would go out of their way to say, yeah, Dave is clearly a right-wing extremist, you're going to have to bring some serious evidence, and you're going to be hard-pressed to find it. Just because you disagree with me doesn't mean I have disgusting political views. It just means I disagree. And so this is the dirty game that we're playing. And this is where veterans are at a loss, because as soon as we bring up our concerns, we're dismissed out of hand, and the government and the judicial system and the people all buy into it. And so I'm hoping that you can see through the bullshit and actually start realizing that this isn't the case. We're principled. We want things to be better for us, but more importantly, we want them to be better for our country and our children. This also leads me to how this government has also pitted us against each other. Afghanistan war was the longest war in Canadian history. Fact. But we are still without a war memorial. This memorial was already agreed upon. And like all things liberal, meaning the Liberal Party, there's scandal surrounding it because a design was decided upon. They were going to break ground. But no. We got to stop that, folks. There's some level of corruption here that needs to get rooted into this whole process. And we can't really build a monument for this war that we really can't get behind because our ideology doesn't fit with it, right? So this is delayed indefinitely. It's been 15 years since my boots were on the ground in Afghanistan. There is nothing to memorialize all the friends that I lost, all of us that got injured in this country. Nothing. Tell me how that makes sense. However, in true liberal government fashion, they've gone ahead and decided to construct the national monument to honor 2S LGBTQ plus community. Do you see what they're doing? Veterans are veterans. But it's very easy to pit one group against another when you do this kind of stuff. So this monument is clearly more important than the war memorial. I'm not saying this monument isn't important, but the message here is that this topic is way more important than the war. This ideology takes precedence over the 20 years in Afghanistan. See what I'm getting at? They want to pit us against each other. And I don't care what kind of veteran you are. We're all in the same boat. We all fought the same wars. We all signed on the same dotted line. And this has just been non-stop over the last 10 years. And this is where I'm fed up. This is where I cannot go on and hold my tongue. I thought I was going to get through this whole election cycle without having to do a post like this, to do a video like this. But I can't see a Canada moving forward with the same old politics, especially for our veteran community. We have so few advocates out there. Kelsey is one of the strong ones. And so I commend her on her efforts. But is anybody listening? That's the worrisome part. I want my children to grow up in a Canada where they can afford a house and raise a family. I also want them to follow in my family's footsteps, a proud military heritage. My grandfather fought in the Second World War. He joined at 16. I joined when I was 19. I would love my children to join the Canadian Armed Forces. But if they were to consider joining now, even though they're not of age, I understand that. I would dissuade them and do everything in my power to make sure that they didn't. I have lost all faith in our military, in our government, and in Canadians as a whole because of all the things I just listed here. I'm hoping that we can redeem ourselves in this next election. And like I said, I don't care who you vote for. It's just we can't keep on going on with the same old politics. I want my kids to grow up in a prosperous Canada. I want my kids to grow up somewhere where the streets aren't riddled with crime. There aren't people injecting their arms worth of opiates, where veterans are treated with respect, where the military is a proud organization to join and not completely overtaken by woke ideology that puts tampons in bathrooms and that doesn't care about lethality and doesn't care about the defense of our nation and our country. I want to know that there are hard, aggressive men and women that are willing to enact and bring violence against our enemies to ensure that we can go to bed at night knowing that we're safe. But that's not the Canada I live in right now. And that's not the Canada I'm really even foreseeing in the near future, unless we take action and change. That's my biggest concern right now, guys. That's my biggest concern. So I'm challenging you, mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, if you're talking to your grandparents, like, this isn't just the same old election. I'm not talking about this is the end of democracy. I'm not talking about any of those wacky talking points that get tossed around. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just pay attention. Pay attention to what most of us have been going through in the veteran community. Because if there's anybody that's paid the price for Canada, it's the veteran. And because so many of us are so humble that we'll never do a post like this, I'm taking it upon myself to not talk for all veterans, but to speak for myself and my discontent. That's the point of what I'm talking about here. I'm hoping this resonates. And I'm hoping you can share with others. And I'm hoping that we can start turning the tide and bringing things back to baseline, to normal, where we can actually have a Canada that I'd be proud to be a part of and to potentially serve again in the future in another capacity. But as it stands right now, it's very hard for me to wrap my head around that idea and hard for me to wrap my head around that idea for my children. So that being said, I'd love to know your thoughts. Am I on the mark here? Is there any way back to what I thought was the thriving, prosperous Canada that I thought I was growing up in? Love to hear it in your comments. I think that's it for me. But I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you sharing this, and I appreciate you being a member here of the Hard to Kill podcast. I hope this all made sense. And tune in next week. Until then, train hard, fight easy. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.